everyone, this is Dennis Chang. Welcome to this week's video. And today's video is a continuation of what we did last week, where we talked about approaching blue bossa from the perspective of a beginner. And today's video is not necessarily so beginnerish, just some bonus content. And I want to teach you some monster phrases from Pat Martino. And before we do that, I need to talk to you about Pat Martino. As some of you may know, I worked with him on a series of instructional videos for DC Music School a number of years ago. And maybe you've heard that Pat Martino is unfortunately no longer playing music due to health reasons. So in 2019, I think it was October of 2019, just before COVID-19 hit the world, he ended up getting a virus that has basically landed him in the situation that he's in right now. So I'm not going to explain the details of this. You can actually read about it on his GoFundMe page, his official GoFundMe page, and you can find the link in the description box. It's 100% legit and the money does go to Pat. And I had news from him recently, very recently. And well, actually nothing has really changed, which is neither good nor bad news. However, I should also say that despite such tragic circumstances, his spirit remains as positive can be. I know that he's very well taken care of by the people who appreciate him, who love him. And however, these health problems do require a very steady stream of income. So if you're able to, of course, please contribute to the GoFundMe site. And also, since last year, I have basically changed our work contract so that he receives a significant portion of sales from DC Music School every single month. So basically for more than a year now, every single month I've been sending him some money. So I want to thank everyone for the support. So yeah, either you contribute to the GoFundMe or you buy from DC Music School, whichever you prefer. And if you buy other lessons from other artists from DC Music School, it's the same thing. It helps the other artists as well. Not just Pat, but a lot of the artists on DC Music School have had a very hard time last year. And this year, well, still this year, myself included. So this money helps quite a lot, and I thank everyone for their continued support. Pat is a jazz legend, and I feel that he deserves all the help that he can get. So thank you so much. And speaking of support, I also need to take the time to say a few things. I found myself, quote unquote, stuck here in Taiwan for over a year now. I completely never expected this, but I basically showed up with just a luggage and a violin, and I didn't have any guitars with me. No amps, no bass, nothing. But now I have an arsenal of toys, and it's all thanks to the generosity of a number of people. So the first person I want to thank is Takano-san from Japan, who built the AT guitar that you see me play on other videos. Whenever you see me playing a gypsy jazz guitar in the past year, it was this AT guitar. It is an incredible guitar. I really love it, and I'm very, very thankful that I have a gypsy guitar here in Taiwan, because there's no gypsy jazz here. So I have a good instrument to play on. And on that topic, I also need to thank my buddy Martin Tremblay from Montreal. He's the luthier who built my guitar that you see in quite a lot of DC Music School videos. A lot of the artists on DC Music School are playing that guitar. It's an amazing guitar, and he's an amazing luthier and an amazing guy. Obviously, I wasn't able to bring this guitar with me, but my assistant, Zach, has been playing it every single day, so it's in really good hands. And really, Martin has been very, very supportive of my career, and I'm very thankful to be able to play on a top quality instrument like that. Next, I want to thank Patrick Godin from Godin Guitars, the whole Godin team really, for arranging for me to have this beautiful Montreal premiere. It was shipped from my native Montreal all the way to Taiwan last year. Basically, when Patrick saw that I was kind of stranded here and I didn't have an electric guitar, he arranged for me to have this. And I'm so very thankful to him and the entire Godin family. And I hope you consider all these brands, all these luthiers, these brands based on their generous support of artists. It's not the first time that the Godin team has helped me. They've lent me guitars over the years for different projects. And I really, really love this guitar. It sounds great and it feels great. Made in Quebec. Vive le Québec! Ben oui, ça se voit, je suis québécois. And now, I want to give thanks to two people, John March and Peter Henriksen. John March is a guitarist producer that I met in Los Angeles many years ago. Yeah, and he works as a producer with a lot of very big names. And as far as jazz guitar is concerned, he is a disciple of the legendary Ted Green. And he's basically dedicated a portion of his life to spreading the word of Ted Green. So on top of that, he's also a philanthropist. A huge part of his life is dedicated to helping others in need, notably musicians. So if you're interested in Ted Green or you want to know more about John March, I really urge you to please check out the links in the description box. John was instrumental in me getting this Henriksen amplifier right here, Henriksen. I want to thank him for recommending me to Peter Henriksen. I didn't even ask for this. It just came out of the blue, and it means a lot to me, really. A huge thanks to him, and then Peter Henriksen, of course, of Henriksen Amplifiers, for sending me this amazing amplifier all the way to Taiwan. I've tried this amp before. This is the Henriksen Bud 6. They were going to send me the big model, but I said, give me the small model. I prefer lightweight. Yeah, I tried this amp before, and it's an absolute beast of an amplifier. I couldn't be more happy and thankful to receive this gift. And I also want to say something like, I don't accept gifts blindly. I often feel very shy about receiving things like this or getting like artist privileges and things like that. And I would not have accepted this amplifier if I didn't know that it had a good reputation. And I know it has a good reputation because I've played their amps before. This thing is the real deal. It weighs about 13 pounds. So as far as amps go, it's really light, but it is incredibly powerful. I've used them in jazz clubs, in venues before, and it packs enough punch to cut through the drummer, loud drummers, pianists, and all that. It's got 2 independent channels, 1/4 inch input, or 2 XLR channels with phantom power. And I've tried it with my Gypsy guitar, with a DPA mic, and it works just like a charm. At one point, I'm going to make a separate video for Henriksen at a later date. But all this to say, this thing is really amazing. So once more, John March and Peter Henriksen, thank you. And I really urge you guys to check out John March. He's a great musician, great human being. It would mean a lot to me if you supported his music as well. All the links will be in the description box. Thank you to all these people and to all those who have helped me over the years. There are many of you. I can't list everyone. It's not the Grammys. I'm really so appreciative of the support. And for those of you on the land of YouTube, thank you very much for liking my videos, for subscribing, for watching, for commenting. It helps the YouTube algorithm because I actually make a little bit of money from your actions, and it helps to basically fund more videos, which I do for free. As always, if you want to support me financially and the DC Music School artists, well then please check out the DC Music School site or check out my SoundSlice page for courses. All the links in the description box. So let me show you the Pat Martino monster phrase that you saw in the beginning. So it's a number of phrases. It's 3 parts. The first phrase is pretty much almost note for note from a recording he did a number of years ago. And I don't know what fingering he uses, and you can use whatever fingering you use, but I came up with my own fingering. And then the B section, I took some phrases that he played on my, not phrases, but some concepts that he played on my DC Music School website. And I used those concepts for the B section. So it's something that I crafted myself based on Pat Martino ideas. So it's an original idea by me based on concepts by Pat Martino. And last but not least, the last section is same thing. It's phrases from Pat Martino, but I modified just a little bit to make them quote-unquote my own. So as I said in the previous video, when you're developing vocabulary by checking out what other people are doing, of course you can just copy exactly what they're doing. And I have done that for sure, but it's just me, and I think it's a good idea anyway, but I've always tried to put my own touch to it, so I modify things here and there. If you go to my SoundSlice page, you will find a transcription of this entire series of phrases, But I would really suggest that you try to do this by ear. I think it's a really good idea to develop your observation skills, your ears. And furthermore, you can even see my fingers. Hopefully that can help. On YouTube, you can also slow down. But I played this at, I think it was 240 or 250 BPM, because that was kind of close to how Pat had recorded his solo from all those years ago. It's more like a samba than a bossa. But these phrases also work well at a slower tempo. So let's check it out at 150 BPM. So that was it at 150 BPM. And now let me just go through each phrase for you very slowly so you can try to hopefully figure it out by ear. Here it is. I'll do it slowly. And for those of you who are theory nerds, I can try to explain the theory for you, but if these are terms that you don't understand, it's okay, just accept the phrases as they are. And I'll break everything down into, I think they're small chunks. So it starts off focusing on, it's on a C minor chord, right? The first phrase. And it's kind of this chord that he's thinking of. C minor 11 if you want. It's a chromatic passage that's very typical in bebop. And then this is targeting the 6. We saw this in last week's video where I talked about, I think it was Dexter Gordon who liked to play the note A natural over C minor. So that's very typical in jazz music. When you're in a minor key, like the 1 chord, which is C minor, it's typical to, instead of playing A flat, which you can still play, but to focus on the note A. This is a very old sound in jazz music. And of course, if you want to think about it this way, yes, it's the Dorian scale. And then it's, well, Dorian scale, but here with the chromatic passing tone. And one thing about this chromatic thing, it's very typical to start on this note, the 11th or the 4th if you want. And what's very interesting is that it happens again down here. But this time there's a small variation. Instead of, it's to give emphasis on this note, which is what we call the 9th, D. Why do we call the 9th and not the 2nd? Because these are what we call in jazz theory. Why did I do this? I don't know. We call these extensions. Extensions are notes that you can play over a chord that go beyond the traditional 1, 3, 5, 7. So it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So what does this teach you? That the note F, the 4th or the 11th, and the 9th or the 2nd sound good over the minor chord. Here's a C minor arpeggio, C minor 7, but then I continue. And notice there's an E flat major within C minor. So it's actually a very typical thing in bebop, not the only thing, but to play E flat major over C minor. So here's C minor chord. It gives this sound. Okay, so instead of, and then what does it do? This is a very typical one. Remember last week I showed you. So that's that. And then here we land on the F minor. And here this phrase here, I mean, there are two ways to look at this. We can call this part of F minor. But you can also consider this to be still part of C minor. Because when you play C minor over F minor, it makes F minor 9. But then the next part where it's clearly F minor is this little thing. It's a very typical bebop move over F minor chord, or over a minor chord. So over C minor, over F minor. And guess what? It looks like an A flat major. So it's that same idea where you play E flat major over C minor. Obviously, you can play A flat major over F minor. So F minor, A flat major, A flat major. So it's one of the oldest jazz tricks there is. Then it's an ornament to focus on F minor 6. Then you have a series of enclosures with passing notes. You can just take this. So when you have F minor, and you change the fingering if you want. I just do this. Check out my video on using one finger. It's one of the previous week's videos. The thumbnail is very cool. Use this fingering if you want. And then what does he do? Okay, just to focus on this note, it's more enclosures. And then we get to the D minor 7 flat 5. What happens? Oh. So it's this chord. It's superimposing kind of A flat minor 6 over G7, which is something you can do. I mean, I can talk about altered scale and everything, but like I said, I'm assuming you guys are beginners, maybe it's not the time. If you want to know more about it, look up the altered scale. But and what does he do? And then only this portion is kind of altered, or you can even say it's from the diminished scale. Listen, forget the theory, just a cool sound. Because here he switches to a G7 arpeggio. And here there's my own thing because he does something else. So this is a cool thing. G7, you can take just this. Whoops, sorry. And then this. And you have an ornament to get to the C minor. And more ornaments. Now let's look at the B section. This is where I made up my own phrase. So remember how I said you can play E flat major over C minor or A flat major F minor? It's kind of like a little conversion that you kind of have to do in your head. Personally, now when I see F minor, I see all the options. I don't even make any conversion. I see everything as being the same, just like Neo in the Matrix. So the first chord is E flat minor, right? So Pat is thinking G flat major. In fact, when I noticed working with them, there was something very interesting. Let's say he would call this an A minor chord, even though it's a C major 7. So that's how I guess that's how his brain works. For me, this is a C major 7 that you superimpose over A minor, but I also see it as, like he does, as an A minor. I can see the dual functions. However you see it doesn't really matter, but as long as eventually you can do things like Neo where everything is just the same. The names don't matter. Okay, so the phrase goes like this. It's just a phrase to focus on this. And then suddenly we have this. So this is a very weird thing. So what is this thing? It looks like a C major 7 arpeggio that we are playing over A flat 7. It kind of makes no sense on account of this G natural over an A flat 7 chord, because it's supposed to be a G flat. So how does this work? So this is something that I didn't understand in the beginning. So like I said last week, it's totally okay not to understand the theory, but it's more important to understand the sound, to hear the sound, and or in the beginning, even if you don't understand the sound, just take the lick and just know that it works over this. Take the lick the way I show it to you. But the way I eventually understood this is by, like I said, I spent so much time listening to so many players. So Pat Martino is a self-taught guitar player, jazz musician. Of course, he took a few lessons here and there, but for the most part, he discovered things on his own. And it's very much from the lineage of a lot of the old players from the swing and bebop era who did the same, because all they really learned in those days were basic arpeggios and basic major and minor scales, and everything else came from self-discovery. As far as guitar players go, it's definitely from the lineage of Wes Montgomery, because this actually, I think the first time I heard something like this, not the way Pat does it, but the same concept was from Wes Montgomery. And then how I got to understand how this concept worked was from, I don't know who, but like some random bebop player, probably someone famous, but I don't remember because it's such a common thing. Well, it's that idea of when you have a C minor, for example, we can play E flat major, right? That's what we just talked about earlier. And then last week I told you when we were looking at the B section, you have E flat minor, right? Over the E flat minor, A flat 7, I told you to think only E flat minor. Well, what we just looked at today was that over E flat minor, we can play a G flat major 7 arpeggio. So then where does this C major 7 come from? Just wait, please. It comes from this. At one point, Pat discovered you can do tritone substitution over the A flat 7. If you don't know what that is, it doesn't matter. But basically in jazz music, one of the most common tricks that people learn is that over the dominant chord, you replace the dominant chord with this chord. D9. And if you go to music school, they'll teach you about the altered scale and stuff like that. And that's theoretically the correct thing, the correct theory. But these self-taught players didn't learn from music school. They just realized, okay, this is a dominant chord. And in a dominant chord, I can think the 2 chord, which is A minor. Right? Because as I said last week, over the E flat minor, A flat 7, we can think the 2 chord, which is E flat minor. So they're reverse engineering this idea. So D9, all right, what's the 2 chord of D9? Well, it's A minor. And why don't I transform it into an A minor 7? That's where this weird note comes from. But wait, didn't we say that over A minor 7, we can play C major 7? That's where it comes from. So it's an intricate network of voice leading. So eventually, as you get more and more advanced in jazz music, you realize there's only 1 chord. So it's not something that you can just like, well, you can try if you want, but I wouldn't just make it happen out of the blue. I try to make good voice leading. And whenever I've heard Wes Montgomery or Pat Martino do it, it was always in a very logical way, coming from something that's a little bit more consonant into the dissonance. But you know what, just give it a try. So anyway, that's where this comes from. So the whole phrase for the B part is this. And then we go to D flat major. I don't remember what phrase I did. I don't know what phrase I did. I kind of improvised there actually. And then the last part, yeah, it was this. So over the D minor 7 flat 5, we said last week we can think F minor, right? But wait, if we think F minor, then we can think A flat. That's what I'm doing here. And then a Pat Martino, typical Pat Martino phrase. There we go. That's the whole thing. So there we go. Like I said earlier, I just want to show you the theory for those of you who are curious. But if you don't understand any of this, it's totally okay. So the one thing, if you're a beginner, the one thing that maybe you can take from this is this idea of superimposing, let's say in C minor, E flat over C minor. You can do this like shape trick. Let's say you play C minor here. Do this, practice this. So when you have this, you know you can play this. So if you have this, you know you can play this. If you have this, that's how you find it. Eventually, you won't have to do this anymore because that's not what I do. Now, like I said, I'm Neo. I see everything. But in the beginning, it can be cool. And so let's try a solo. I'll try to improvise a very, very basic solo using this concept. So this is what I'm going to do. Over C minor, I'm going to play E flat. Over the F minor, I'm going to think A flat. Over the D minor 7 flat 5, since it's related to F minor, I can stay on A flat. Over the G7, I'm going to think this A flat minor. Okay, and then the B part, over the E flat minor, A flat 7, I just stay on E flat like I did last week. But by E flat, I mean G flat major 7. Over D flat, well, D flat major 7. And then the last part, the C section, is the same as the ending of the A section. So it's the same thing. D minor 7 flat 5, I'll think A flat. G7, I'm going to think A flat minor. So basically I have A flat major 7 going to A flat minor. And then to C minor, I think E flat. Ooh, it's hot. It's really hard for me to talk about theory like that. Because really, eventually what I do is just, because I have experience, but I just feel it. But it's something that you learn to do by practicing a lot, thinking about all these things that I talked about, and hopefully eventually it'll just come naturally to you. So let's check out that solo. I should also say one thing, that it's actually very, very difficult for me to do these kinds of exercises where I only force myself to do one concept. It's not the way I practice. I'm not saying that this way of practicing is bad or anything, but I had to do a few takes just to get it right, because often I play, sounds like a cheesy thing to say, but I play by feel. But to play by feel, you have to have listened to a lot of music, spent a lot of time practicing all the things that I talked to you about, all the important things. And then basically you play what you hear in your head. And only rely on theory when you don't hear anything, which actually does happen sometimes. So luckily I can fall on little tricks that I have, like knowledge, whenever I don't hear anything. So basically, if I play a chord, it inspires my ears. And I then go with the flow. I hear a few notes that I can play in my head, and I go from there. It's a mix of ear and knowledge. It's something I can talk about in a future lesson, but like, you know, it's hard for me. I never practice singing, but I can hear it in my head. And the reason I didn't practice singing is two reasons: because I'm lazy and I have a very bad voice. Would you like fries with that? It's very hard for me to practice singing because I don't have a big range, but I swear I hear things. I should see a doctor. It's hard for me to sing. So this is way more advanced, and it's something that I would only work. Well, actually, it's not something I worked on. It's something that came naturally because I kept training my ears, kept listening to music, and just eventually I started hearing things. But yeah, there we go. Thank you very much. Please support Pat Martino and support musicians in general. Thank you so much. Maybe one day, if you guys want, I'll make a video about this whole ear thing, because it's actually not 100% ear. It's a mix of ears and knowledge, because you do need knowledge. And I don't use the word theory. I prefer to use the word knowledge. I can talk about that in another video. It's semantics, but in this case, I think it's worth making a distinction. But yeah, maybe it's another video. If something like this interests you, let me know. All right, I got to get back to work. I accepted this contract to transcribe Mike Stern. It's a 100-hour job, and they gave me a deadline, a 2-week deadline. So I need to be working 4 or 5 hours a day to accomplish that deadline. And I made this video because I felt I have to please the YouTube algorithm, and because my wrist hurts from using the typing all day. Wish me luck. Bye-bye. Thank you.